let me conclude by saying, I believe his name is General Ward, is on the way to his new leadership post in Africa. That is not enough. So, Mr. Secretary of Defense, what I'm asking you today is present us within the next 3 months, that would be 90 days, eligible candidates. I know there is a structure, there is a board that has to meet, but present eligible candidates, I say 5, that is a number that I've just indicated, that will be ready to move up the ladder for the flag officership. Action is what we want, not inertia or lack of action. I hope you accept the challenge, Mr. Secretary. Find us 5 African Americans ready to follow the general now moving to head up the command in Africa. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me just, for the purposes of the sun beaming down into the members' faces, if we can just move over here since we don't really, it's there, but we're going to continue this issue on. Yes.
I just want to comment that throughout the meeting there was a whole discussion about the need to start early and encouraging young men and women to join the military, and it was put back on us that it was our obligation to do that, and none of us disagree with an obligation that we have to encourage young men and women to go into the military. The disagreement comes at the point that once they're there, what happens to them? Is there an opportunity for growth? Is there an opportunity for development? And while they're in there, who's there to help them and encourage them to be part of the growth and development? It's almost, again, when you go back to the Bollinger case, the whole discussion was about the success of African-American student in law school was there had to be a critical mass in order for there to be success. And it's our belief that even though there may be a number or a significant number of African-Americans in the enlisted corps, there is not a critical mass of African-Americans in a group that would move up through the military to be in leadership. And in light of that fact, we believe that, and consistent with the statements of the military in their amicus brief in that case, that they have an obligation to step forward and do more and be involved more and give opportunity. And see, there seems to be some question about whether or not we're questioning whether the people who come for those positions have to be as qualified. There are African Americans that are as qualified and more qualified than many that get the opportunity, and we all know that. And we know that's historically what has happened to African Americans throughout history. And so we need to make sure that they focus a light or shine a light on those who have the skill set and who have the ability, and make sure they're put in the appropriate tracks to be successful. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to step up.
May I just follow up? I said the 50% of the domestic budget, and my good friend Congressman Scott knows the breakdown of that, is the United States military or the Department of Defense. Do you think if we went out to our inner city communities, our rural communities, and announced that huge figure, and then to find the small percentage of leaders out of the African American community that are able to take advantage of leading and being heroes and patriots based upon a 50% utilization of our tax dollars? And if I may do just a PS, a matter that I hope we'll be discussing further, and I've asked for someone in my office, and that is to take another breakdown of how many minorities are doing business with the Department of Defense in the backdrop of the horrific situation with Blackwater. Just ask the question, how many minority businesses are doing business with the DOD? It reflects overall of the treatment of African Americans. Doesn't mean the officers there don't have a good heart. They want to do something good. They want us to work with them. But it has to come from the head, from the top, from the commander-in-chief, and we have just not seen that kind of leadership from the commander-in-chief. That is a shame, and it has to stop now.
Let me just say in closing before we go into question and answer, we do have the statistical data of how many flag officers, 1-star to 4-star, that are presently in the military. We do know that there's only 1 4-star African American general and only 3 women that are have even met the rank of a 1-star, 2-star individual. We have that in a briefing to supply to you. The real issue is that there has to be some engagement between the Black Caucus and the Pentagon. In my opinion, we've gone backwards instead of forward. As it relates to Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones has shared, and the military has shared, that we have to be diversified. I think we're learning more and more now in theater. The old way of doing things not necessarily the best way of doing things. And we need that diversity. We may need to look at Title 10 congressionally of how one makes it to the rank of one-star general or four-star general. You have to think about the fact that General Ward was commissioned in 1971 and just recently made it to the four-star ranking. So if you were to go to a young person in general, white, black, Hispanic, what have you, and say, in 21 years or 22 years, you can become a one-star or a one-star admiral, 9 times out of 10, they're going to opt to go into another field where they can make a faster upward mobility. So as we look at a different, changing workforce, for us to keep up not only with corporate America, but with other opportunities that are out there, I think it's very, very important for everyone to pay close attention to that. Let's say, for instance, if you were commissioned in 2007, to become an 07 or a one-star general, that won't happen until 2033. So we have to look at this, we have to look at these issues, because you look at your generals and you can ask them on average of how long they've been in the military to get to where they are, white or black, and that's an issue that I see as a major, major problem. We're losing a lot of folks to other fields. They're getting trained in the military to either go in private as it relates to military operations, or they're going into the corporate America. So with that, we open the floor for questions.
Do you have a list?
Identify where you're from.
John Allen. I'd like to follow up on that. What would you say to someone who's 18 years old, 17 years old, trying to figure out what they want to do with their life? They're a good student. What would be the argument for them right now to go into the military? And
well, the argument right now is mainly to serve your country. We have a lot of young people that are excited about serving their country, but as we see a prolonged war in Iraq and Afghanistan, as we see the lack of upward mobility as it relates to the question today, minority ranks, you can count on one hand, pretty much, of those that have made it to the higher ranks. Let's say the U.S. Marines, for instance. There was just a lieutenant general appointed recently that would, that's General Clarence, the 3-star general, not Gaston, but General out of Quantico. I have his name. It'll come to me in a minute. A 3-star general that sits on the board as it relates to who becomes the flag officer. They haven't had diversity up until that point. That's something that we have to look at. Women that are interested in becoming a 2-3-star general, they have to get around the whole issue of being able to have combat assignments, command assignments, to be able to move up in the military. As we look at the people in the room to diversify, meeting there with a 4-star general that would go unnamed to use the word colored, I mean, that is, that's been outdated for a very long time now. And that goes to show you how far we have to go to not only bring about the sensitivity, but the fact of putting the people in place to make the right decisions in the first place on behalf of an ever-growing military.
Let me just add to what Congressman Meek said, and a point that I brought up in the room is our military is creating a catch-22 for itself. There has been aggressive recruitment in communities of color, but when you see that the officers, the ranking members within the military are not reflective of your own experience, and we're in such a very desperate time of war, weighing the pros and cons of it becomes a real challenge for communities of color. If you know that the history of our military has been one that has not embraced diversity, and we haven't really gone that far, in all of these years, what is it that they must do in creating a culture that embraces diversity? We're willing to do our part, and I think that despite all of the challenges, despite the unwelcome mat at the door, communities of color, African American communities have really given their all to this nation through its military service. It's now